Hey history buffs and curious minds, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into a fascinating and often overlooked chapter of the American Revolutionary War, a time when the fledgling United States actually captured one of Canada's most iconic cities, Montreal. That's right. For a brief period, the Stars and Stripes flew over this bustling metropolis. But how did it happen? Why did they do it? And why don't we hear more about it? Let's unravel the tale of the American invasion of Canada in 1775. The year is 1775. The American Revolution is in full swing. Battles have been fought. Independence is being debated. But a key question loomed for the Continental Congress: how to secure their northern flank. The British still held Canada, and there was a very real fear that they could use it as a launching point for attacks into the American colonies, especially New York. Enter the strategic minds. George Washington, fresh off taking command of the Continental Army, saw an opportunity. Two expeditions were planned. One, a daring trek through the Maine wilderness, led by the controversial but undeniably brilliant Benedict Arnold, aiming for Quebec City. The other, the focus of our story today, was a direct assault on Montreal, led by the experienced Irish-born General Richard Montgomery. Montgomery's force, composed of New Yorkers, Vermonters, and some New Englanders, set off in late summer. Their first targets were the British forts guarding the vital waterway of Lake Champlain, Fort Ticonderoga, and Crown Point. Now, these forts had already been captured earlier in the year by Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys, but Montgomery consolidated control and prepared for the push north. Their biggest obstacle before Montreal was Fort St. John's, a heavily fortified British outpost on the Richelieu River. This wasn't going to be an easy fight. The siege of Fort St. John's lasted for over a month, from September into November. The Americans faced harsh weather, dwindling supplies, and determined British resistance. But Montgomery, a skilled tactician, used artillery and cut off British supply lines. Life for the besiegers was brutal. Disease was rampant, and morale was tested. But the pressure mounted on the British defenders. Finally, on November 3rd, 1775, after 45 days, Fort St. John surrendered. This was a massive victory, opening the path directly to Montreal. With Fort St. John's fallen, the British commander in Montreal, General Guy Carleton, realized his position was untenable. He had a small garrison and knew he couldn't defend the city against Montgomery's now victorious forces. Rather than risk a devastating battle within the city, Carleton made a strategic retreat, attempting to escape down the St. Lawrence River. And so, on November 13th, 1775, just 10 days after the fall of Fort St. John's, General Richard Montgomery and his American troops marched unopposed into Montreal. The city was taken without a shot fired. It was a remarkable achievement, a major psychological boost for the American cause, and a significant blow to British prestige in North America. For a brief period, Montreal was under American control. The Continental Congress hoped to win over the French-Canadian population, promising them religious freedom and an end to British oppression. They even tried to issue paper money and establish a provisional government. But winning hearts and minds proved to be a far greater challenge than winning battles. Despite some initial curiosity, the French Canadians, for the most part, remained neutral or even somewhat wary of the American newcomers. There were cultural differences, the paper money was mistrusted, and the strong influence of the Catholic Church, which largely sided with the British who had guaranteed their religious freedoms, made widespread support for the rebellion difficult to achieve. Meanwhile, Benedict Arnold's expedition to Quebec City was ending in disaster. The brutal winter march and the ill-fated New Year's Eve assault on Quebec City failed, with Montgomery himself being killed during the attack. This left the American forces in Canada in a precarious position. As spring of 1776 arrived, so did a powerful British fleet carrying thousands of fresh troops, including Hessian mercenaries. With their commander gone, their supply lines stretched thin, and facing overwhelming British reinforcements, the Americans realized their dream of bringing Canada into the rebellion was over. In May 1776, less than 6 months after its capture, the American forces abandoned Montreal and began their long, arduous retreat back to New York. The invasion of Canada, despite the initial success at Montreal, ultimately failed. The U.S. would never again seriously attempt to annex Canada. So, while the American capture of Montreal was fleeting, it's a critical part of the Revolutionary War story. It demonstrates the early ambition of the United States, the incredible challenges faced by both sides, and the complex loyalties of the time. What do you think about this often overlooked invasion? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.